Welcome to part 22 of Vegas Pro Essentials. Before we conclude the series, I wanted to dedicate one video to some of Vegas Pro's unique features. Some things are brand new, while others need a worthy reminder. Starting straight away in the timeline, when it comes to working with events, Vegas Pro takes a non-destructive approach and nothing is permanently overwritten. As you move events to the timeline, events overlap but do not erase each other. For example, crossing event edges creates an automatic crossfade. The length of the crossfade is determined by the overlap. You can move events, but also trim events to lengthen or shorten the crossfade without moving the event. If you wish to remove the crossfade, right-click on it and in the Transitions menu, convert it back to a cut. As soon as you overlap the event again, the crossfade will be recreated. To prevent the crossfade from being created, you can disable the automatic crossfades by disabling the button in the timeline toolbar. However, events will still overlap each other, but without overwriting or erasing each other. You can even place one event completely within another and they simply overlap. If you wish to work in the more traditional way, I recommend splitting events as well as trimming events so there is no event overlaps. You're also able to add more video tracks and layer the video events within the timeline structure. This behavior will take a small amount of time getting used to, but the benefits is rapidly moving events around the timeline without the need for always trimming the events. The other unique behavior of events is event looping. This was covered in previous lessons, but it's worth remembering. When you add an entire source to the timeline, you can still trim out the event indefinitely, even though the source media is not long enough. Instead of stopping where the source media starts or finishes, the event loops the media. The inverted triangles on the event show you where the new loop starts. This is great for fast looping of media, graphics, and audio when needed. However, this can lead to confusion if you run out of source media when trimming the event. Another area to watch out for is event looping during a crossfade or transition. In either case, trim the event back to the inverted triangle to prevent the media looping. An alternative to looping the media is to right-click on the event, choose Switches, and set to hold last frame. This freezes the last frame of the media for trimming, and the beginning of the event can no longer be trimmed out. Right-clicking on an event only applies the changes to the event. To change the behavior for all future events, go to Options, Preferences, and under the Editing tab, disable the event looping by default. Next, we have regions. Regions are a fundamental part of Vegas Pro, and they have plenty of uses. However, it is quite common to accidentally trigger the regions in two ways. Either dragging the timeline cursor above the time ruler, or double-clicking an event. There is nothing to panic about if this happens. You can ignore the regions in most cases, but to cancel them completely, just click in an empty region of the timeline. The region markers above the time ruler won't disappear, but that's nothing to be concerned about. So, what functionality do the regions offer? Well, I think you might be surprised. The first use of regions is looping playback. You select the region you'd like to view, enable the loop playback button, and press play. The timeline will continue to loop until you stop the playback. Disable loop playback if no longer needed. The next use of regions is to check your timings. For example, you can create a region over the edit. Looking at the bottom right of the timeline, you can see the start time, end time, and length of the selected region. If you want the region to be a specific length, double-click on the selection length and enter in your time. The region will adjust to the new duration, and you can use this as a guide in your editing workflow. You can also make the region more permanent by right-clicking on it and inserting a region. You give the region a name, and it's always there to use as a reference. This frees you up to make other regions as you work. But regions are not just for playback, measuring, and referencing. Regions can also be used for precise editing with the trimmer. For instance, you can use regions as a start and end point for a new edit. Very importantly, ensure the region is selected. Next, locate your media and load it into the trimmer. Locate your start frame and click in the video preview. The vertical line will remain at the start frame. Click the Add to Timeline button and the event will be created within the region using the start frame as the first frame of the event. Switch to the video preview to review the result. This is called a 3-point edit in most NLEs. You can also do a 4-point edit or fit-to-fill edit with regions and the trimmer. This works by creating a region in the timeline. Let's say 2 seconds. Next, load a source into the trimmer and create a selected region about 4 seconds long. Click the Fit to Fill button. The 4-second footage is sped up and edited into the 2-second selected region. Switch to the video preview and play the result. The next benefit of regions is setting the duration of generated media or adjustment events. By default, generated media and adjustment events have a length of 5 seconds, but you can trim that to whatever length you want. However, it is slightly faster to create a region for the length of the media and insert the generated media event. These micro time savers do add up as you're racing towards your deadlines. Regions also help with selecting all the tracks in the timeline when performing delete operations. For example, make sure that no events are selected by clicking in an empty area of the timeline. Next, create a region of the timeline where you want everything deleted in the region. Press the delete button and everything deletes within the region. As an extra reminder, with auto ripple off, it creates a gap like this. However, with auto ripple on, everything will be deleted in the region and the follow-on events will close the gap, making the edit shorter. The last use of regions is that regions can be used to export a portion of the timeline. Simply select the region of the timeline you'd like to render out. Click the Render button and ensure Render Loop Region Only is enabled in the render window. You would then select your preset and render out the region. This is very useful for previews or grabbing a snippet from the edit. Moving away from region selections, the next function that everyone uses is resetting parameters. We change our minds constantly, and knowing how to reset effects tools in Vegas Pro is super useful. When there is no animation on a parameter, the fastest way to reset it is to double-click on a slider. If there is no slider, but there is a location box, double-click in the location box. So that's how to reset a parameter with no animation. But when there is an animation on a parameter, double-clicking will reset the parameter to its default value. However, it will only do so at the current frame. Plus, it will also keyframe the animation. This is great if you want an animation to go back to its default at the current keyframe. But for resetting the parameter entirely, you need to turn off animation by clicking the parameter's Animate button and then double-clicking the parameter to reset it. This works the same everywhere, except for Event Pan and Crop, which was covered in an earlier lesson. The last thing we'll do is a great tip more than a unique Vegas Pro function. Since most of us live and breathe social media platforms, thumbnails are a must alongside the edit. To use a frame of your timeline for a thumbnail, navigate to the frame with the timeline cursor. At the top of the video preview window, click the Save button to save a snapshot. You would choose your save location, and you can choose between a JPEG or PNG file as the image format. Once the file is saved, you can incorporate that into your thumbnail creation. This concludes the Boris FX Vegas Pro Essentials. but keep an eye out for more upcoming training videos. I'm Grant K for Boris FX, and thanks for watching.